Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another great Seiko for you from actually Jomashop. This is a special little shout out to Jomashop. This is a Jomashop find for you guys from Seiko. A little bit about them. They were founded back in 1881. They're Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to very high end. In terms of this type of watch, I'd consider it an everyday watch. Some key common characteristics and design language when you're looking for something that can be worn every day. Of course, you're really just going to want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. Now, this is from Seiko's Essentials line. This is the SUR371, and it's essentially a super affordable and decently equipped model for both the casual buyer and enthusiast. It's nicely infused with Seiko's signature design language and features premium materials like sapphire crystal and a titanium construction, which is great. Now, these normally list out for about $250 and they sell pretty well at $250. You can find this right now on Jomashop, depending on when you're watching this video, for about $193, which is pretty sweet, especially considering that there's always codes you can put into Jomashop. So definitely check these guys out. Hopefully they're available by the time you see this. But one thing I really enjoyed about this one was the dial color. That pale bluish gray just really hits. And then of course the fact that it is titanium with a sapphire crystal and a very solid quartz movement. I'm digging it, guys. Even the size wise, I think, you know, it would be nice if it was a hair smaller in the 38 millimeter range, but at 40 millimeters, well, 40.3 if we want to be exact, it's still not too bad at all. And then the thickness is actually quite thin at less than 9 millimeters. So with all that said, let's zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys, as you can see, really just a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. You can see the brushing, the titanium on it. It just has this really nice kind of opaque glow to it, almost like a sheen, where the brushing is so fine you almost can't see it. And part of that, what that does is it gives an illusion where it makes the titanium look brighter. I know a lot of you see a titanium watch and you tend to see it as a much darker material, even with a lot of hints of bronze. What Seiko does here with the finishing does help this watch render more like a more brilliant stainless steel, although you're getting the benefits of titanium. So very hypoallergenic, great on the skin, and of course super lightweight while being very, very strong. And some people might think, oh, well, titanium is, you know, it's not as strong as steel. It's stronger than steel. It's harder than steel, but because it's harder, right, it means that it's not as flexible as well, right? Which hard can also mean brittle, right? Glass is very hard, sapphire is very hard, but it can crack, versus mineral, which can scratch. So one of the big misconceptions about titanium is that it's just really weak and it just scratches really easily. Honestly, it's really just the outer oxidized layer on top of the titanium that actually scratches. And honestly, titanium itself is a very, very strong material, and you can see this thing is finished. I mean, it's pretty breathtaking, guys. Look at the bevel on that. Look at the brushing on that case. It's, I mean, $193, under $200. You're gonna get a beveled edge, in-house everything down to the lubricants and jewels. I mean, just they grow their own sapphires. This is a full, you know, full-on watch from a watchmaker, not just a watch brand, not just a name on a dial. These guys do it all. So now to get into the exact dimensions, you're going to have 40.3 millimeters across diameter. In terms of thickness, 8 6.7 millimeters thick and only 46.5 millimeters lug to lug. Of course, brushed and polished titanium case and bracelet. You're getting a flat sapphire there. It doesn't have any anti-reflective coating, but it definitely still, you know, looks great. And honestly, for the price point, I really can't be too mad, you know, that it's missing that. Especially when you look at the dial and you actually see it has even an applied logo, which is fantastic. In terms of the bezel, it is nicely brushed with a great polish chamfer there. As you can see, again, it's those attention to details. Really nice. Look at that edge there, parallel with each other. It just all ties together really nicely. Very, very tidy in terms of the design and the execution. The crown is unsigned, and it's not a screw down crown, so you're not going to expect a lot of water resistance from this. Just 10 bar, 100 meters, which means it's actually sealed pretty well in terms of the crown and also that screw in case back. As you can see, let me go ahead and pop the clasp open. Stamped affair, just like you would expect at this price point. But very, very nice, guys. Look at that case back. It is honestly butter on the wrist. Yes, these are hollow end links, but the links themselves are, I believe they are solid, but they may be actually, you know what, I can see a bit of a seam on the links, so they are probably hollow links, but they feel nice enough. And then also, hey, it's titanium. You want it to be light, so the lighter the better from that standpoint, right? The movement inside, although you can't see it, is the quartz Seiko 6N52 movement. And you can see there, if you want to take a look at the way everything lines up when it comes to it hitting each marker. You know, it's not Seiko's most fancy quartz movement, guys. Again, this is not a very expensive watch, but I will say it definitely does the job. Now, in terms of this dial, the nice thing is you are getting implied indices and you're getting Lume on that outer track. You're getting, of course, that beautiful pale bluish gray sunray dial with the date at the 3 o'clock. That is actually very nicely framed there. And then you're getting the polished hands, which is great, and they're even loomed for the hour and the minute, so definitely quite functional. The lugs are 20 millimeters, so hey, good news. If you want to put this on a strap, you absolutely can. This thing is begging for it, absolute strap monster. But I will say the nice thing is it has the design language of Seiko, higher end Seiko. Some would even say Grand Seiko. So I'm not saying it's around that level of quality, but it has that design language and that grammar in its aesthetic where it is pretty recognizable as a Seiko watch. And if you know Seiko, you probably know that this aesthetic speaks to the higher end, you know, Grand Seiko, or, you know, very popular these days, the Presage lines as well. But this is at a much smaller fraction of the price. So again, you are getting hollow end links, but the nice thing is you're getting a female end link, which is great. So this is going to drape really well. You can see it doesn't protrude any further, so that 46.5 lug to lug is going to read very, very true. Now, in terms of this bracelet, it does taper down to 18 millimeters, and you do have one micro adjust option there, so 2 holes, so you can go one or the other. So you do have that to really dial in your fitment, and then it just actually uses the easy link tool that Seiko recently came out with. So it actually has a pin and collar system, but the collar is actually a spring collar that's in the center, and it's actually really easy to work, and it actually works really well. So you're going to get the benefits and security of a pin and collar while having the quick change adjustability and just having it be relatively easier like you would with just a typical friction pin. So very nice, and it does come with a tool that is provided in the box. So, with all that said, let's actually get this piece on wrist and see how it wears. All right, guys, as you can see, absolutely handsome. Again, look at that thinness, guys. That thing just hugs the wrist. And then, of course, you're getting all the tricks of the trade from Seiko in terms of wear quality, those ergonomics. This thing wears really well. Actually, I'm going to give it just a quick wipe so you guys can really enjoy the bevels on this bad boy. Check them out. Holy smokes. Again, guys, under 200 bucks. This is definitely an amazing budget timepiece. I have to say, very, very impressive. And this is the kind of stuff Seiko's known for, and it's also very funny that so many reviewers and so-called fans are kind of really upset with Seiko, saying they're getting away from their, affordable roots. They're still putting out watches like this, but honestly, people just aren't paying too much attention to them. They are paying more attention to the $1,000, Presage and Prospex models because they're really great looking watches and they're really well equipped. But you can also, if you really want to get something with Sapphire, something with a very cool exotic-ish metal, you can get this bad boy, and it really it represents, man. It really does. It holds its own. It gets great. It has great wrist presence, although it is very, very thin and flat. I mean, this thing disappears on the wrist. I know that's a phrase that's really overused, but my goodness, with the titanium, guys, with the ergonomics, with the just the general wear, this thing is really, really sweet. I'm really digging it. So let's get it up close. As you can see, with a little lens distortion, might appear a little large, but you get a little bit more arm in there. And it does the job. Yes, I do have a larger wrist at 7 1/4, and honestly, I've started wearing my watches a little bit higher up. I used to wear them on the wrist bone. Now I'm wearing them above the wrist bone, so I'm probably closer to 7.5 inch wrist above the wrist bone. But I will say that, of course, with more arm in there, more perspective, you can see this isn't an oversized watch by any means. Would it be a little bit nicer and more refined, a little smaller? Absolutely. But, of course, this level of piece and the way that it's priced and propositioned, it really needs to have a lot of crossover appeal. And there are a lot of men in the demographic that would say they wouldn't wear anything under 40 millimeters. So when you search for a watch, you got to make sure that it's optimized to meet all of those searches and that criteria. And 40 millimeters still is relatively the sweet spot. So I'm not mad, and I absolutely understand that this is a volume mover. And pleads for a 38 or a 36 millimeter probably won't be heard. And if actually I reviewed a 36 millimeter, the steel kind of variant of this watch versus the 40, and it had a smaller bracelet, and the proportions just weren't great at that scale. But with that said, let's go ahead set up a very brief Lume shot and low light transition so we can push into the closing thoughts. All right, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, obviously not a sports watch, not a big Lume beast, but you know what? It has Lume. You can tell what time it is. Sure, the 12 o'clock, cardinal kind of position, 12, 6, and 9. Not really differentiated there, but, they do the job. So, maybe not the keenest navigation piece, but when it comes to just an everyday wear, that is quite easy to dress up and dress down. Oh man, look at that dial, guys. I mean, honestly, this dial reminds me a lot of some of the shades that I find in my Ginza Alpinist, as well as my Mountain Glacier Alpinist. So those are very desirable dials and watches. But this bad boy right here, again, not very expensive. And that slate blue pale dial is just really, really nice. This thing's rocking, guys. Also, I like the way that the light plays off of it. As you can see, you're gonna go a couple different ways. You can get a lot of light in there, very saturated, and really see those highlights, or you can get very high contrast there, where it's a very thin beam that shoots across and a very dark dial, as you can see, rendering at certain angles, or a very nice bold bright dial. So for me, that makes it very, very versatile in terms of wear. Also, if you look at the way the light glides over the links and plays with that bezel there, the brushing, you can just see that there aren't a lot of imperfections or anything on this watch, even if I get into some harsh lighting conditions. And yeah, I do like to do these low light transitions because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you'll be walking underneath an overhang, coming in and out of buildings, maybe just spending time in your favorite automobile. So it is nice to see, one, how the textures render, and two, how the colors render in less than optimal lighting, guys. So that's what I like to do. But let's go ahead, get the lights back on. Wow, now you can really appreciate the pop in this blue dial. It's really, really gorgeous. For me, it's the selling point. Titanium is a cool, yeah, sapphire cool. That just makes you want to buy it more, and it helps justify the price. You're getting titanium construction, you're getting a sapphire crystal, you're getting it from a very solid brand that is really on the upswing right now. So, you know, it has a lot going for it. Even at full retail at 250 bucks, I honestly think it's a very fair price. But you can get it for 193 from Jomashop, guys. So very, very cool from that standpoint. Now on the wrist, very classic wear, extremely light and balanced. It just does disappear on the wrist, which is great. In terms of model variants, there are various dial options available. Definitely check the links in the description for details. See what you can find kind of within that range. If this isn't doing it for you, but you know, they have some more basic-ish colorways that will, I think, speak to a lot of people. But for me, this is the quintessential one pick of the bunch. This thing is sweet. Now, in terms of in terms of comparable models, I would say Citizen also does offer some quartz, titanium, you know, plus sapphire models within this price range. But I think where this model really shines is that it's probably more comparable to more expensive Seikos with similar tones, colors, like I mentioned, different colorways that are similar to this in terms of the dial layout, and also this design language that is very, very classic to Seiko, and it's a real, you know, iconic look. Which is great. So you're getting those premium materials at a very, you know, less than premium price point. So for me, really great deal. I mean, guys, dads, grads, gifts, all that. This is it. Your mom says you got to buy your brother a watch. Budget's 300 bucks. Buy this for 250 and save yourself that other 50 bucks and buy your brother some beer. So yeah, I'm digging this one a lot. I think my son, it's probably headed to his wrist, just because it would have to compete with so many other watches that are just of a bit of a higher ilk in terms of the you know, where they rest within the collection. But this thing is sweet, and I have to say I've really enjoyed my time with it, in terms of, you know, getting a review together, wearing it around, even just around the house a little bit from time to time, just because it just disappears. I mean, this is the kind of watch you go do some ironing with, and you know, it's just a fun piece, and there's something about that connectivity with titanium and how light it is, and how smooth and nice it feels, and buttery it is on the wrist. It's really cool. I enjoy it a lot. So guys, in terms of the bottom line here, I mean, this thing has the makings of an absolute strap monster, and it is at a truly entry-level price point, guys. This is not entry, mid-tier, you know, luxury-ish. This is straight up entry level. I mean, there are watches that are much worse that sell for much more than this watch. So yeah, I mean, you get the sapphire crystal, you know, which adds additional protection and longevity versus other watches within this price point. And then you also get the titanium for additional comfort. So it adds a lot of value. This thing has value, and it just is an amazing value proposition. So kudos to Seiko for continuing to release really great watches like this. I know they don't get a lot of you know, looks in kind of the review junkets, but I'm glad to share it with you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.